What is up, Janksters? It's your boy Graham, also known as HamHawks42 on the internet, and today we have Orzhov Clerics. That's right, we are building an Orzhov Clerics list, even though Orzhov Clerics was a major archetype in Zendikar Rising, so prior to rotation, this was a deck that you may have seen. But most of those tools rotated out. We no longer have Aura, we no longer have the Pyre of Heroes, which was a big part of that deck as well, because this deck is actually functioning significantly different than that. However, at the end of the day, it is the same colors, and we are focused on Clerics. Now, before we go into the card-by-card breakdown, I do want to give a huge shout-out to my patrons. Angry Jellyfish, Else89, and Silent Labber. Thank you for doing what you're doing, and helping me keep the lights on. I really appreciate it. You rock. So as far as the deck itself goes, we have a lot of great tools. When Wizards puts out white or black cards that happen to be really good, especially at gaining life or being paid off for having gained life, they end up being Clerics a lot of the time, just incidentally. The Cleric is a creature type that they throw on tons of stuff. And the reason that I decided to build this deck right now is because Dominaria United saw a phenomenal Cleric Lord in Shadow-Rite Priest. This is a 2/2 for 1 and a black. Other Clerics you control get +1/+1, and then you can pay 3 black, tap, sacrifice another Cleric, search your library for a black creature card, put it onto the battlefield, and then shuffle. So I see two things here. One, we have a deck with this in a deck that cares about Clerics is off to a really good start. You can do some phenomenal stuff with that because it buffs your whole team potentially. But also, I saw a way to cheat in my buddy Toxrill on turn 5. You better believe I'm gonna do that. So I'm pretty jazzed. Being able to turn a 1-drop Cleric into a Toxrill or a Cemetery Desecrator or Liesa, Forgotten Archangel, all fantastic. So we have a 1 of Toxrill and a 1 of Cemetery Desecrator as like our toolbox options that we can go fetch out of our deck with that, which is pretty darn sweet. We could also grab Liesa with the Shadow-Rite Priest ability as well. And she is our curve topper. We want to hit Liesa most games because that is really the just nail in the coffin that ends it for a lot of our opponents, which is pretty sweet. If you're not familiar, Liesa Forgotten Archangel is a 4/5 flying lifelinking angel for 2 white, black that says whenever another non-token creature you control dies, return that card to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. If a creature an opponent controls would die, exile it instead. So you know what's awesome when your opponent has an Tenacious Underdog online? Blocking it and having it go to exile. It's pretty darn sweet. And then you get the creature back that blocked it, assuming it traded. So it feels pretty good. Liesa is actually a phenomenal way to kind of rewrite the game at the end there. Like, your opponent needs to have an answer for her, or the value you accrue is pretty fantastic. So when it comes to the Clerics that we're actually filling our deck with, however, we have quite a few. Now, one card that I must confess, I have railed against in the past. You can no doubt dig into my VODs and find clips of me calling this card a massive design mistake. But the reason I'm calling it a massive design mistake is because that it is phenomenal and it fits this deck like a freaking glove, and that is a Voice of the Blessed. This is an Ajani's Pride Mate on just the most steroids. This thing is insane. It is a 2/2 for 2 Spirit Cleric. Whenever you gain life, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. Then, if it has 4 or more +1/+1 counters on it, it has Flying and Vigilance. And then if it has 10 or more counters, it gets indestructible. This is bananas. Like, if you're gaining life, this card gets out of hand so fast. It is a must answer immediately for your opponent, which is great. I love that. Now, as far as life gain goes, we have Liesa, who's a life linker. That's nice. We also, of course, have Lunarch Veteran and the Traveling Minister in this deck. They are both Clerics, meaning they get the buff from Shadow-Rite Priest, and we can sacrifice them to the Shadow-Rite Priest. Lunarch Veteran, notably, is a Cleric on the front face. We sacrifice it, it becomes a Spirit Cleric on the Disturb. So we can sacrifice Lunarch Veteran to the Shadow-Rite Priest ability, go grab a Liesa or a Toxril, and then disturb it back and have another Spirit, this one with Flying, on the battlefield. Or another Cleric, rather. This one with Flying. So, phenomenal stuff. And Lunarch Veteran and, of course, Traveling Minister are both life gain engines as well that can help buff our Voice of the Blessed very quickly, very fast. We also have Phyrexian Missionary in the list. This is a really good card in the early game. It's a 2/3 Cleric for 2 with lifelink. That alone is worth the price of admission, frankly. I would probably put it in this deck if it just had that. But wait, there's more. It also has Kicker. So if your opponent had the answer to your Shadow-Rite Priest or your Voice of the Blessed, for 4 rather, one of which has to be black, one of which has to be white, when it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So you can raise dead your big 2-drop threat that they finally got rid of and stick it back on the battlefield and keep going. Pretty awesome. This card is great, frankly. It's just really good. It's the uncommon cleric from Dominaria. Just, yeah, keep it going. Well, okay, maybe I spoke too soon. The other uncommon cleric from Dominaria that we have is Elas il-Kor, Sadistic Pilgrim. This is another cleric. 2/2 for black-white with Death Touch, and whenever another creature enters the battlefield under control, you gain 1 life. So it has that Lunarch Veteran, you know, Soul Sisters kind of effect, where you're just gaining life just by having your stuff enter the battlefield. Pretty darn sick. And then whenever another creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life. Not super relevant generally, but can be useful, and it might be that last point of damage you need to close a game out. So keep in mind, don't forget about that. We also have Anointed Peacekeeper. This is a 3/3 human cleric with vigilance for 3, and when it enters the battlefield, you look at your opponent's hand, so you get perfect information on what they have, which is great, and then choose any card name. Spells your opponent's cast with the chosen card name cost 2 more to cast, and activated abilities of sources with the chosen name cost 2 more to activate if they're mana abilities. Unless they're mana abilities. Mana abilities are exempt, but everything else costs mana to use. Costs additional mana to use. Pretty fantastic. If your opponent has a planeswalker on the battlefield, this is an awesome answer for it. Name Liliana of the Veil, your opponent's going to be very, very mad. Because they're going to have wanted to uptick. Now, if they're going to uptick or downtick Liliana, they have to pay 2 mana additionally. That's fantastic. You can do a lot of great work with that. So don't forget about stuff like that. Yeah, this card's great. It's also just a massive cleric. And if you have a Shadow-Rite Priest or 2 down, it's going to get those stat buffs and be just an awesome beat stick in combat. So it does exactly what we want. The other one that we have here is Markov Purifier. This is the Signpost Uncommon from Crimson Vow. This is a 2/3 life-linking vampire cleric for 1 white-black. At the beginning of your end step, if you gain life this turn, you may pay 2 if you do draw a card. This card is not great, if I'm honest. If I had to cut one thing for just like some direct removal or something, because that's one thing, this deck is very straightforward. It does the thing it does, and that's it. We are going to be putting some stuff on the field. Our goal is to get them very, very large. We have a toolbox, kind of quasi-sideboard in the main deck that we can go grab out of, you know, with our Lord. But at the end of the day, we are gaining life, and we are trying to get our board bigger than our opponents and beat them to death. That is the goal. Now, if I were to change this around and add in some just targeted removal or anything of the like, Markov Purifier is probably what I would cut. However, it is a card draw engine, which is something that can be very useful. It is a clunky one. It's a little expensive, to be fair. However, it's still something, and it is a lifelinker. So this actually gives us a couple things. One, it's a cleric, so that's nice. It's also a black creature we could fetch with Shadow-Rite Priest if we were in a really tough bind, and a lot of our other threats got answered. So that's something. It's a card draw engine, and it's a life linker. So it's going to be gaining us life. They're going to be triggering our Voice of the Blessed. It's going to be drawing us cards potentially if we're late in the game and we're in top deck mode. It's a great way to kind of give us a little boost there. So it's something, and it helps buff our team, and it's more damage that we can be applying in combat, which is really what we need to be doing if we're going to be successful. So that's the deck. It's very straightforward. This is kind of on rails. We are focused on getting bodies on the board, most of which have lifelink, and we're going to race our opponent until they're gone. And I think right now, in the standard best of 1 meta, there is a fair amount of mono black and mono red. And I suspect this kind of linear strategy might actually work against those decks. I might be crazy. We might get punished, but I think we can make it work. So let's run this thing out onto the ladder and see what we can do. All right, I'm seeing a 1-lander, even with 2 1-drops in hand. I am not comfortable keeping that, especially on the play. This looks much better, and we have a nice little added benefit of being able to tuck Toxril back into the library, because that's where we want that slug anyway. So yeah, that's pretty solid. I'll take that. So that's coming down on 2. We have an opportunity to stick the Voice of the Blessed here. If they have a cut down though, that could answer it quite comfortably. So what I'm actually gonna do is throw the Phyrexian Missionary now. We're gonna stick the lifelink, because now we can play the Voice of the Blessed next turn, assuming the Missionary survives, which is not a given. If the Missionary survives... okay, now here's my debate. I'm considering throwing Voice of the Blessed before combat. If we throw Voice of the Blessed before combat, we can gain, we'll gain a life and buff it up. The more I look at it, the more I think we need to play Elas. But to be honest, I should have done it after combat. I should have attacked first. That would have been smart. Never said it was smart. Alright, but we connect, gain a little bit of life. Okay, cool. The reason that I played Elas here is now, when we play Voice of the Blessed next turn, Elas is going to trigger as soon as we have a creature enter, we gain 1 life, and it buffs up. And then we attack with the Phyrexian Missionary, gain some other life, buff it up again. So if our opponent is relying on a cut down or something, now is their opportunity. Yep. Okay. Excellent. So we're going with the lots. We dealt 6 damage to our opponent. Voice of the Blessed is doing his thing. It's now a 4/4. Opponent playing Shadow Prophecy. Okay. I'm looking at the top 4 cards of the library, if I'm not mistaken, because I don't see a mountain yet in their mana base. Shadow Prophecy is actually a really great way to fix your mana, though. But fix your hand for whatever they need. And I'm assuming they're going to be digging for some kind of board wipe, like a drag to the bottom would hurt us pretty badly here, if they have it. But they only have 1 black mana source down, so they need to hit an untapped black source and then the drag to the bottom. Jetmir's Garden, that is not a black mana source, so okay. If they do have a drag, they're not hitting it here. That's nice. I like that. Alright, Lunarch Veteran is fine here, but Shadow-Rite Priest is better. This is going to enter the battlefield. We're going to get a buff off, or, a life gain off Elas. Voice of the Blessed does its thing. And we have Xaxes here, if all this connects. Do they have removal? Oh, we did all this with 2 lands so far. Leyline Binding, there it is. Voice of the Blessed is definitely going to eat it here. They're looking at Elas. Did they take Elas? I'm shocked. Absolutely shocked by that. They have more removal. They have to. Okay, or they don't. All the same. Good game. Our deck did the thing. It did exactly what it came here to do. Let's see if we can go do that again. This hand looks amazing, if I'm completely honest. We won't be able to hit Elas on 2 because the Shattered Sanctum doesn't enter untapped until 3. But frankly, Lunarch Veteran on 1 into Voice of the Blessed on 2. That's cash money in the bank. Let's go. And then we hit Anointed Peacekeeper on 3. Oh. I'm realizing I was having so much fun putting this deck together, and I was so excited to share it with you. I didn't even put my fancy lands. That's my basics. They defaulted to the Baldur's Gate ones. I'm sorry. I'm embarrassed. I said I'm probably not even gonna fix it after this game. So just heads up on that. Sanctum's coming out. Here comes the Anointed Peacekeeper. Let's take a look at that hand. What you got, homie? Syncopate. Oh, that'll do. That'll do. Fair enough. That was a fine hit, actually. Countering that was wise. Proving Grounds coming out. If they have an answer to Voice of the Blessed, like an Infernal Grasp or something, it is in their best interest to hit it. Definitely in their best interest to hit it. Gonna try to cast Elas pre-combat so we can get the Lunarch Veteran trigger on the Voice. Excellent. Excellent. We now have 5 damage on board. Happy to see that. Voice of the Blessed is really the MVP of this deck, no question. They're gonna cut down Elas, sure, because they can't cut down the Voice. And Elas and the Lunarch Veteran have redundant abilities. Now they didn't know we had another Elas in hand. We sure do though. Now we can try to stick Liesa, who's obviously a house. And it's clearly what we want to be doing. But I suspect they might have more removal. You know what? Screw it. Let's rip it. Let's see what happens. If they have a counter spell, we eat a counter spell. Urtai, that'll do. Yeah, all right. Oh, fair enough. But we are gonna draw a card here. That's nice. And we can still attack with the Voice, because 4/4 beats 3/2. Let's go. All right, our opponent playing the tempo game. We did get him down to 7. Micromancer, they have 1 up. Are they gonna go grab a cut down? Micromancer's not a card I expected to see today. Good work, opponent. I'm very interested to see what you do with this. Cutting down the veteran is not a bad idea. Yeah, they have Jund up, so they can grab a red. If they have a 1-drop in red, black, or green, they're gonna have Voltage Surge, but they don't have an artifact to sack. Interesting, interesting. All right, I'm trying to play out another Voice of the Blessed. Now, if this triggers that, or if this resolves and Lunarch triggers, if they don't have an answer to that voice, it is now going to get out of Voltage Surge range, even if they do get an artifact in the not-too-distant future. Then we follow that up with Elas, and that's going to lift this Voice of the Blessed off the ground, making it a 6/6 flyer. Unless they kill, I mean, yeah, they need to just Surge the veteran. Yeah, that makes sense. That's a mild bummer. However, we can now disturb the veteran, and that triggers Elas. Yeah. So, as you can see, if Voice of the Blessed is doing its thing, it's still got it. Alright, let's move on to another game, see if we can do that again. Caves of Koilos is going to give us an opportunity to play veteran into veteran. I like that. So let's keep it. You might also be wondering, what is Rafine's Tower doing in here? Our deck is clearly just Orzhov. The reason that Rafine's Tower is in here is because the activated ability on Toxril requires blue. So it is not likely that we are going to hit that, but if we have Rafine's Tower in the mana base, we might be able to use it. So that's nice. Radha's Firebrand coming in as a 4/2. That is legit. I'm afraid that is too legit to quit. I'm going to go ahead and play out Rafine's Tower, because that's a dual land that's going to be entering tap regardless. So I'm going to stick another Lunarch Veteran, which is going to offset the pain from the pain land. We're just going to chill till the next episode. By the next episode, of course, I mean the time we get to play Shattered Sanctum next turn, followed by a Lunarch Veteran and a Shadow-Rite Priest. And possibly start cracking back. Because if we can get 3 Lunarch Veterans online, and our opponent doesn't just burn all of them for some reason, which, I mean, I'd be shocked if they're not running, like, Play with Fire, Lightning Strike, those kinds of removals, that would really wreck this Lunarch Veteran plan that we've got going on here. We could do a double block here, but not worth it. Oh, no, sorry, we can't do a double block because we're out of Firebrand. All the same. Still not going to do it. I wouldn't have done it anyway. So, come on in. Welcome to my face. It has all the amenities. Every last one of them. Alright, Oppo, considering what to Lightning Strike. That's my read on this. Do we go face? Do we put something down and then realize, oh, we can do it at instant speed? What am I, why worry? Alright, another Veteran, because we can. Veteran, won't you take my hand? Got me rocking and rolling, rocking and reeling, veteran. Anyway. Alright. So they're going to blast one of my Lunarch Veterans to mitigate some of the life gain. We still have other life gain. Crack in for 2. Alright. Just need life gain. All the life gains. All of them, in fact. Every last piece of life gain that we can possibly muster. Yeah. So, at this point, if we block with the Lunarch Veteran, because Etchings of Kumano is on the battlefield, it will go to exile. It will not go into our graveyard, so we will not get the disturb option, which is unfortunate. Radha's Firebrand is probably going to be pinging down our Shadow-Rite Priest here. No. Interesting. So we could trade the Shadow-Rite Priest with Radha's Firebrand. Now, they may have some kind of removal or something that can deal with that, which is upsetting, potentially. But you know what? As much as I hate to do it, I think I do need a block here. It's going to take 4 power off the board. You're going to stick an Epicure. It's going to come down to 2/2, sure. We have the Markov Purifier for next turn. That lifelinker is going to be really critical for us. That block may have been a mistake, but I think the Radha's Firebrand was easily the biggest threat they had as a 4/2. And yes, the Cleric Lord was very, very good for us. but it wasn't one of our life gainers, which is really what's driving us forward here. I say as they're about to burn our last Lunarch Veteran, or one of our... no, they blood token away a Valdaran Epic here to draw into another Valdaran Epic here. Okay. Alright, here comes a Markov Purifier, which is going to gain us 2 life just by entering the battlefield. And we now have a 2/3 lifelinker on the field. We don't have the mana to pay for the 2, unfortunately, but what you going to do? Is what it is. So now we have a lifelink blocker, which is kind of the red deck's worst nightmare. So they need to find a lightning strike to get rid of this. If they have it, great. If not, we're gonna be pretty well set. Because if they attack into that, I'm 100% blocking. Yeah, this is a situation where Markov Purifier is pretty darn good. Rodda's Firebrand notably does not have haste. That is a big frickin' deal. All right, our graveyard is empty, so the kicker on Phyrexian Missionary is irrelevant here. Mildly unfortunate. However, this is going to be entering the battlefield, gives us a second lifelink blocker. We are going to be gaining life here. Ding, ding. Continuing to just get out of reach by our opponent, and we have the mana to dump in to draw some more cards. Hey, more lifelink blockers. Awesome. Check it out, everybody. We're doing the thing. Now, we still need to turn this around and actually apply pressure to our opponent. We'll get there. I'm not worried about that. Okay, they're gonna blood away Sokenzin. But our opponent was looking for an easy win, and we're not giving that to him. Because the red deck usually just rushes forward and wins, which, I mean, we call it red deck wins for a reason, right? But here, we are denying that, and that feels good. It feels real good, dogs. Real good. Shadow-Rite Priest to buff Dusk Squad. Again, graveyard's empty. So we're gonna drop this little homie. And I'm gonna attack with this Phyrexian Missionary. Just the one. It's a 3/4, they can chump block it, but if they do, we gain 3 life, putting us to 21. Which, again, is like the last thing red deck wants to see. But we've also gained life off of our veteran this turn, so we are going to be able to pay 2 to the Markov Purifier and draw a card. That's the thing. This deck is more of an aggro deck when it's going up against like a mid-range or a control deck. When you're going up against like aggressive red decks like this, we're looking for a long, grindy game. Like, we can do both. I love that. That's so fun. Yeah. And so our opponent scoops it up here because it's very clear that their game plan got countered to perfection, given what we did. If they hadn't scooped it up there, next turn, I would have been able to sacrifice one of our Lunarch Veterans and go grab a Toxril. And turn their whole board into slugs on our side. So we definitely had it. They were correct to scoop there. So I gotta say, I like this deck. It's funny, actually. This is gonna end up being one of my shorter videos because the games are so fast with this thing. So this strikes me as a potential ladder climber. Like, if you're looking to just climb the ladder, this deck might be the answer. So thank you so much for checking it out. I appreciate you. And yeah, I stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/AMOX42. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you over there. I have a Discord server that is wide open. You're more than welcome to jump in there, share your thoughts on decks like this. If you have other deck ideas, I'd love to hear it. Also, we do run an event on my stream every single week on Tuesday called Tuesday Brews Day, where I take ideas from the community, compile them together, and we actually vote on them once a week. If you have a deck idea that you would like to see on my stream or, you know, featured in a deck tech here, please leave that in the comments below. I would love to see those. I'm always interested in whatever the next piece of tech is out there. And there are only so many cards, so many deck ideas I can come up with on my own. You know, we're definitely a community around here, and I appreciate that. So thank you so much. I'll catch you on the next one.